People have been waiting for this.
For me to come back and host again?
No, not that. Not at all. They're waiting for this.
I thought you were scared.
I am not scared. I'm an Asian American who has many skills, this being one of them. And are you scared because you don't have your own personal paddle?
Listen.
You have a paddle.
I don't need my paddle to beat you, Pablo.
You don't need a paddle. All right. That didn't go great. But we have names today, Mina Kimes. And the first is Colin Kaepernick. After settling their collusion lawsuit with the NFL on Friday, Caps lawyer Mark Garagos joined CNN and made some news with a big prediction. Let's watch.
I talked to Colin today. I talked to Colin today not about anything else than his desire to play. I'm going to make a bold prediction that one of three teams picks him up. I mean,
Which three teams do you think will pick him up?
I think look, the natural would be if Cam Newton is out, then the natural place to be is to play with Eric in Carolina.
So he wants to play in the NFL again?
He absolutely wants to play. He wants to compete at the highest level. I will tell you, besides the Panthers, it would not surprise me if Bob Kraft makes a move.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that would not surprise me. And it would not surprise me if his former coach, I'll test your knowledge, also makes a move.
I don't know that one off the top of my head.
This guy.
That was a pretty good goss from the lawyer, Mina, but do you actually see Cap signing with the team?
I do not.
No.
So we don't know all of the reasons why the NFL settled with him. We can speculate as to whether they thought they were going to take an L or whether there were embarrassing texts and depositions. We do know one thing. The owners would very much like for us to stop talking about Colin Kaepernick, and that was certainly one of the causes behind the settlement.
Yeah, and I think they have to ask themselves, any team individually has to ask themselves, do we want to bait the President of the United States into getting back in the waters on this topic with us as the target? But let's pretend that he actually does wind up on a team despite our skepticism. What's at stake? Like, what actually happens if he's on a football field playing quarterback?
It gets interesting, right? Because if he does play and he plays poorly, then his detractors will come out and say, see, he was never being colluded against. He just wasn't very good. If he plays and he chooses not to kneel, those same detractors will call him a sellout. Meanwhile, his supporters will point out that the collusion case was never about what happens in the present. It was about what happened in 2017, right. 2018, which only confirms what I've long suspected about Kaepernick, which is no one's changing their mind at this point. Like, the sides are entrenched on this issue. It doesn't really matter what happens next.
That is my feeling about all of this. It is weird to get a giant resolution like a settlement, and yet have there really be no forward progress in terms of who is crossing the aisle, right? This is a boxing match where both people at the end of the fight are walking around proclaiming victory. And I think it's entirely because, whether it's the Peterman, whether it's the Sanchez coming back, whether it's any of the things involving the arbitrator saying, no, in August 2018, you may proceed on this, we all kind of know where we are and what would even make anybody actually change their mind on this?
Exactly. That was my point, or my quibble with people who talked about the NDA and thought, like, wow, he's not letting this evidence get out and it would have changed our minds. And imagine all of the embarrassing stuff the owners said. I would love to have seen the embarrassing stuff personally.
Same.
A lot of people would have. But in terms of actually advancing the protest, his activism, or protecting players' rights, I'm not sure if it would have made much of a difference.
Because he was criticized for that. It was the idea that Colin Kaepernick is a sellout because he took money. But realistically, like, were you really going to be surprised if an NFL owner said something untoward? Would that change your opinion on the NFL suddenly?
Shocking revelation. All right, James Harden is the next name. During a shoot-around Saturday night, Steph Curry appears to have spilled some tea about James Harden to Bucks coach Mike Budenholzer. Let's listen.
It's so good for the sport and everything. And
it's interesting, though, because I was talking to James, in fact, like, obviously complimenting him on what he's doing. The first thing he said was like, it's fun, but I want to play different. Like, I'm about myself, whatever, hero ball. But, like, if people want to play like that, there's a system where they actually can play beautiful basketball.
Yeah, like, it's such a beautiful sport.
Know how to play.
It's interesting for him to say that. Like, I would not have thought
I would like, you're right. Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep doing that. He's like, nah.
Your eyes. Pablo, what do you make of this?
This is big. And it's big because I don't know if Steph Curry knew that he was being recorded there, right? We saw him do the move, Mina, that any of us would do if we were suspecting that we were being recorded by a camera, which is you turn away from the camera. He did that, and yet obviously we heard everything, and I wonder if you're Daryl Morey, Mina, if you're the GM of the Rockets, who has no shortage of reasons to loathe and resent Steph Curry, do you believe that Steph Curry was saying that in good faith? Because that would be my first question if I'm Daryl, for instance.
I do, because it's Steph Curry, right? Like, if this was LeBron, we would assume that he had been planning it for weeks, that he knew the mics were there, that it was some grand scheme involving the Lakers and the Illuminati. But it's Steph Curry, and he seems to actually be making some sort of, illicit confession.
An adorable but illicit confession.
And yet it's not that surprising of a confession when you really dig into it, because it was against the Warriors last year. You remember after Game 1 in the Western Conference Finals when James Harden came out and said, I can't do this by myself. And then we know how that ended poorly for Harden. It was very taxing on him. James Harden might like playing that style of basketball personally, but he knows the end game.
Yes, and that end game has been that way for years now. Everybody from the outside hearing this as an impartial bit of basketball analysis is unsurprising, because we all kind of think James Harden's going to be exhausted when this is all done. And many people have been criticizing James Harden for not playing a fun style of play. But to hear James Harden himself say it to Steph Curry, it reinforces, Mina, why, in fact, these super teams like the Warriors exist. James Harden has a massive ego. So does Kevin Durant, so does Steph Curry, so does Draymond Green, so does Klay Thompson. But the idea that they can make their lives easier by sacrificing something, that is where it's fascinating to hear that giant bearded man say it to us. And he must internalize some of that doubt, right?
Yeah, it's weird hearing it from him, because for so long everyone, not just basketball nerds, but fans, even some players, have said James Harden plays ugly basketball. Like the Warriors, that's the beautiful game. James Harden, nobody likes that, but people who have defended him, who have defended his case as MVP, defended his statistics, have always said, well, look at the results. He might not like the process, though.
No, and if the process is that ugly and the result is also going to be elimination, I understand why people hate the Warriors. Their last name is Antonio Brown, because Peter King of Pro Football Talk, reported today, quote, I think the more Antonio Brown tweets, the more he scares off potential suitors. In parentheses, that's not just something I think. In the case of one team, it's something I know. End parentheses, end quote. But are you surprised to hear this?
No, not at all. Even though I kind of understand what Antonio Brown's doing. He's trying to get out of Pittsburgh. He's trying to burn every bridge in that city. And there are a lot of beautiful bridges in Pittsburgh. You guys should really visit it. But in doing so, as Peter points out, he's tanking his trade value. Antonio Brown is worth a first-round pick. Yes, he's entering his 30s, but it's a cheap contract, and he's only a year removed from leading the league in receiving touchdowns, 2 years from leading the league in receiving yards. He's fantastic. Every team in the NFL wants those hands, but they do not want those Twitter fingers.
No, and it feels like Antonio Brown is doing that thing that a petulant child might do when he's trying to get his parents to pay attention to him. He is stomping his feet and saying, I'm leaving this house. Stomp, 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 stomp. Do you hear me leaving this house? Because I don't know how much leverage Antonio Brown can independently generate. What we seem to have, though, is it's some clarity, right? Because we have this tweet from Antonio Brown that Peter King may or may not be referring to specifically, in which he says, no conflict, just a matter of respect, mutual respect. This is in reference to his beef with Ben Roethlisberger. He has an owner mentality, like he can call out anybody, including coaches. Players know, but they can't say anything about it. Otherwise, their meal ticket is gone. It's a dirty game within a game. #truth. #truth, Mina. But what do you make of the Ben element of this? Because he seems to be mostly fuming about an important person to their team.
The hashtag doesn't lie. Okay, really? People defend Ben Roethlisberger for criticizing his teammates by saying, well, he's a Super Bowl champion, he's a quarterback, he's earned that right. Show me another quarterback that does that. You can't find one. It's
on a radio show, right?
No less, right. It's not normal behavior for Roethlisberger to go out and criticize guys in public. Antonio Brown does have a point there.
But if Antonio Brown is tweeting all of this, and he also tweeted at the owner, right? He's resenting that the quarterback has a relationship with the owner. And I wonder, is there any team in the NFL where Antonio Brown, wide receiver, could lay claim to that kind of relationship at all? Is that realistic?
Maybe?
Coming up next, find out who's on AD's list. You know the list. That one.
Whoop, whoop. You can listen to the High Noon podcast. Mina's got one too. So do I. The phone lines are open if you have a podcast offer from Pablo.
So to clarify for people who may have been wondering, you are not Bomani Jones.
Yes, often confused for him. Thank you for explaining to people halfway through the show.
Bo's on vacation, so we have her fill in, and she has a card to grab, in fact.
Yes. It's a quote. All 29 teams are on my list, said Anthony Davis when asked to clarify if the Celtics are on his list. Let's listen.
It told me that you had mentioned maybe the Celtics being on that list. I just wanted to clarify. Is that on the list or are they not on the list?
All 29 of the teams are on my list.
Everyone's on the list.
I don't have a preferred destination. Like I said, I just want to win.
So people who had reported it's the Lakers and then it's the Knicks.
I never gave a destination.
The man whose voice it is, Anthony Davis.
A destination where he wants to win.
Okay.
What's your reaction to this?
So this feels like Anthony Davis not liking being a villain, right?
Yes.
Like, we've been waiting to hear from him first off. Like, what does he actually think? We heard his dad be very angry about the Celtics and the Isaiah Thomas thing. We've heard proxies for Rich Paul. But this feels like a young guy, Mina, who doesn't like being the character that he's found himself being.
What amuses me so much, I mean, there's a lot of things that amuse me about this quote, is how inadvertently insulting it is to New Orleans, right? Because Anthony Davis' whole reason for leaving the Pelicans was that he wanted to compete. Now he's like, nope, any team that's not in Louisiana is fine. Imagine if he signs with the Magic.
The Orlando Magic would be, oh my God.
For the Pelicans, that would be like getting dumped and then seeing your ex with someone who looks exactly like you. Ooh. To be clear, I don't believe a word he's saying. He also said that day when asked about the New York Knicks, they're a great franchise.
They are a great franchise. Except for all of the other things about the franchise, like the owner who is rumored to be wanting to sell the team because he's so deeply toxic and unpopular. But I think you're right. And I have seen, by the way, I've seen friends have that happen where the bizarro ex is in the picture. It's always uncomfortable. And that's how you know he's lying. He doesn't want to do anything but what he wants to do. The problem is we still don't really know what he wants to do. Our next quote. I reject the notion that payroll is a good measure for how much a team is trying or how successful that team is going to be. Said baseball commissioner Rob Manfred. Mina, is he right?
Of course not. You know Rob Manfred's a lawyer because this quote is not technically inaccurate, but it's absurd on its face, right? Because when he says payroll is not indicative of how good a team is going to be, I mean, yes, the arc of tanking is long and it bends towards winning at some point, but that point is not now. Half of the league, more than half of the league, is not trying to win. They're not spending anywhere close to the luxury tax threshold. And when you look at the teams in the World Series last year, what do you see? The first and third most highest spending teams in baseball.
Yes, and this is a commissioner who's trying to explain away a massive PR problem. Because as I say, the NBA free agency, it's the Bachelorette. You wine, you dine, helicopters, and all that. In baseball, it's Craigslist. Do you want to take these superstars off of our hands? And no one, seemingly, shockingly, is doing so. And to me, this is also about the luxury tax. That's the unsaid thing at the center of all of this. It's you have this middle class of teams that have money. They have plenty of money. The media deals worth billions, distributed, all of that, revenue sharing. But they just don't want to spend the money because they know that if they spend money, they'll be penalized by the luxury tax. And so I ask you, why even have a luxury tax if what this commissioner is saying is so?
And I ask you, have you actually watched The Bachelorette?
No. But there are helicopters?
There are helicopters. That's true. You did get that right.
How many Asians are on The Bachelorette?
Very few, and they get eliminated quickly.
Yeah.
Quote.
That's what I thought.
Dunk contest next year? Thinking face emoji, thumbs up emoji, or thumbs down emoji. Tweeted Giannis in response to the excitement over the crazy alley-oop he finished yesterday. Pablo, how excited are you by the idea of seeing Giannis in the dunk contest?
I am very excited about Giannis, and it's because of this thing that happened in the All-Star game yesterday, even though Giannis' team lost. Can we play that video for America? Because this is Steph Curry, and that is Giannis. And in the middle there, by the way, was Kevin Durant. And this is like watching love from the public just bounce right over that guy to that guy, and that is the passing of the torch in ways that only Kevin Durant probably is really able to articulate.
The thing is, Giannis has already participated in the dunk contest.
When did he do that?
2015, and it wasn't very impressive. Let's watch.
He's so young and so unjacked. He's lanky.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean,
really, it's not even creative. He didn't finish it.
That's really not that great.
The balance is all off.
He was like 14 when he did this. Hey, it's his brother.
That was a little cool.
Right. So, but my issue with this and all of these dunks and the question of are you excited about the dunk contest, it demands creativity. And so what I want, Giannis, if you're out there, what I would like you to do, get a baby Bjorn, put a small child in the baby Bjorn, jump, and then have the small child carrying the basketball and then dunk for you.
Or you dunk the small child. Clearly, we don't have children.
That's a great idea, though. That's a great idea. Giannis, have a child, then dunk your child, but after the break, an NHL announcer loses his mind.
Oh my God, Becky, look.
Your personal ping pong paddle, which is a thing that you own.
Don't mock me.
You said, I play some ping pong, and then you mentioned casually that you have your own paddle. I feel like this was a setup, is what I'm saying.
Why don't you have your own paddle, is what I'm saying.
I'm gonna go get one after this, I guess.
That's how many goals the Carolina Hurricanes scored in their victory over the Oilers, and announcer Don Cherry was not happy with how they celebrated. Let's listen.
So why are you mad at Carolina?
All right, now let's listen. This is the National Hockey League. Brendan Moore is a good coach. These guys, to me, are jerks. One of these guys are jerks or something? And I'll tell you one thing, they do this in the playoffs, making fun of the other team.
But nobody's out on the ice. The game's over. I admit, I always liked your theory of when you celebrate when you win only, and that's why you like Muhammad Ali, whereas Sugar Ryder did the
before. Now, you don't, if you want to do it before. But that is absolutely ridiculous. I know the rest of the people. I know all the broadcasters and everything are afraid to say something like that. They're jerks doing it. I kind
of like it.
I know you. Well, you're lucky. The weatherman, you know what I mean? I know what I'm talking about. You never do anything like that. They're still not drawn. They're a bunch of jerks as far as I'm concerned.
Wow. I was a little self-conscious about this jacket. No longer.
Yeah.
Pablo, do you support his outrage?
I mean, look at him. Mina, look at him. This guy wants to say Don Cherry of all. I was trying to come up with an analogy for this, but no. This is like if a guy who dressed like this complained about hockey players seeking attention.
Literally.
Look at what what? Really? You?
Yeah. I got another number for you, $32. That's the cost of a Bunch of Jerks t-shirt, which the Carolina Hurricanes social media account is now selling.
They've merchandised this already?
Less than 24 hours is all it took.
Because this is where they're actually thankful, obviously, for Don Cherry, because all of the things we saw, that wasn't like particularly subversive, but now that this dude who was in that video dressed like a very ethnically appropriate suit for today's episode of High Noon. That dude, really? That guy, yes, he can be the rebel, make you the rebel without whatever cause you want.
That hat.
That hat. In closing, I would like to discuss Bizarros, because if you did not know that our very own Mina Kimes has a Bizarro of notable prominence, let's watch.
Oh, there she is.
Ah! 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 Ah!
It's an Amazon commercial. Many people have pointed out that the actress, whose name is Milani, looks like me. We've actually become friends.
Really?
Yeah, but so...
But the reason, Mina, I want to bring this topic up is because I have a Bizarro of my own now. Can we throw him on to the big wall back here? Yo! Like, I'm gonna be honest, guys. I've resisted being a Bizarro. We know that guy, the Asian guy, the naked guy who like throws things off of tablecloths with his nipples.
I remember him.
But this is kind of incredible.
He's a flight attendant, right?
He's a flight attendant on Air New Zealand. Shout out to a viewer of High Noon named Rob Groves, who pointed it out. His name is Michael, apparently.
Truly uncanny valley. Do you think if our Bizarros replaced us on this show, America would know the difference?
They would not. there's a 0% chance that they would not, that they would. But this guy walked up to this flight attendant, Mina. He walked up to him and said, "Do you know who you look like?" He did a triple take, and the guy who is from New Zealand said, "I have no idea what you're talking about." So Michael on Air New Zealand, you look like this.
Well, he looked like a younger, smoother-faced version of that. In closing, the Celtics' Jason Tatum was asked this weekend how much cheese he puts on his tacos for some reason, and told the world that he uses an entire bag on just 3 of them. That's how you know he's been training with Kobe. He's all about volume and not efficiency. Wow. Oh my God, what are you doing, Pablo?
So I haven't eaten lunch today. These are some tacos. There are 3 tacos. And do you want to see how I eat tacos, Mina?
It's a rhetorical question.
Give me the cheese! Cortez, just bring over the cheese.
I thought this was supposed to be the smart show.
No, it's not. Here is my bag.
Oh my God. Who made that?
Our staff. And so,
Sorry,
you just gotta... some of this. Are you not into any of this? Do you not like cheese?
No, there's good.
Sometimes when I find myself at home, and the fridge is open, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna cut off some brie.
And just
some manchego, just nibble.
Your raw hand.
Do you like to eat the cheese wax? Because I eat the cheese wax.
I mean, my people, we struggle with lactose intolerance. This is like a bomb.
Wait, that's
about
a
to
thing?
go on. Yes, that's a thing.
Really? Wait, is it a thing for me?
That's a thing. It might be. Oh.
I'm sorry, everybody who works in this studio, but this is how I eat tacos.
Oh, no. Oh, God. Oh, why?